We move on to public participation, the public forum. Could I invite Bruce Stanton and Mick Ingram, who wish to speak to the Lower Heathcote River and have a PowerPoint presentation for us. Thank you. Oh, and local lizard, sorry.
And the local lizard.
I wasn't aware of local lizard.
I'd like to welcome everyone here, and I'd just like to sort of get things underway with a few words from the local lizard.
But now that you're here, the word of the lizard is perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. We speak for the trees have no tongues.
Thank you.
I think I just wanted to use that to help set the scene in the sense of there's been various projects on the Lower Heathcote. Some of them have been down by the Calder Green Reserve, which is down towards the Ferrymead. There's been recently a lizard sanctuary put in, which is obviously we've got some local lizards, which is really good, some quite big ones. There's been a river trail along the south bank where there's been gorse and weed clear, and all this work has been done by volunteers as part. So it's trying to actually where this works in. Here goes some of the work that was just happening. Locals are doing it and making things happening. So a lot of it's about public awareness and working with all the stakeholders around. I guess one of the issues that we see is that there's a variety of groups. There's Friends of Calder Green, which is a reserve. That's not a council reserve. It's a forest and bird reserve. There's the Forest and Bird North Canterbury, Heathcote Valley residents, local guild guides, eco-volunteers from Christchurch, and obviously the Coastal Rangers team that puts a lot of effort in. But the main part that we wanted to address is that the principles that we've been used dovetail completely in with the council's aims of having an open sanctuary to, I guess, revegetate or allow the bird life or any other wildlife in that zone. Also, the restoration planting has been going on for about the last 15 years by volunteers. We also seek expert advice from the land care research. We volunteer some of their time, some of the members, about the work that's done, and there's a variety of other sort of things that happen there. So this was a recent one. That lizard's been loose again there. You can see it running in the picture. But there was a small little triangle there that was set underway. I mean, total material cost by the of hard costs was $3,500. None of that money was provided by the council. The council just provided the land, so it's about saying, look, we want things to happen, so the convince either locals and Forest and Bird to put up with the money. So it was based on years of common purpose, which is what any community-based aspect should be. We'd like to see that area is increased by fourfold, because it's actually what the Ferrymead Regional Park Plan was put out roughly about just short of 20 years ago, but has never been acted upon. So the locals are really sort of saying, you know, if you're not going to make it happen, we want to make it happen, but we're sort of trying to create some momentum here. Some of the frustrations that people from the volunteer group, it might all seem small, but they're actually quite big operational, because it's about that social labour capital that people put in, and they want to see some reward for that to actually happen. So some of it's small. There was a lot of earthquake cracks along the trail by the river there, which is marked A. All of those have been filled in at the expense of volunteers. They've got all their own crusher. They put the gravel in, they put crusher dust. They haven't done the whole track, but they'd love to put more on it to make it available. It's been good in the last year. The trail's been mowed again, but previously it had been totally neglected. We understand those things from after the earthquake. Just that B is just a big pile of broken glass that had been dumped probably 20 years ago, and the volunteers felt that wasn't needed half a small truckload to take that away. And just obviously to control, there's still motorbikes or other things doing onto sensitive land there as well. This is the area that's been worked on. The purple line is where this planting's happened. That's part of the Ferrymead Regional Plan that was put in roughly around about 2000. So the planting's been going along the walking trail. The small B is the area that's part of the lizard sanctuary that was planted out. And C, you can see the big line underneath, is saying that's how big it should be. The Calder Green Reserve is actually the brown big Devil's Elbow loop that you can see the river. So that's the area that's also been looked after by volunteers. But we're sitting on this plan with nothing happening for the last 20 years, and there's people making it happen, but we'd love this, the council, to actually pull finger and provide some assistance. Since that as well, through the community, the Linwood Heathcote or Hagley Community Board, there's been a walkway that's been put in on the south bank. Once again, the whole thing's been done by volunteers. They're working on clearing the gorse for the planting, and this will dovetail with the council's cycleway at the other end. So the cycleway is planned to come in at the other end. There's already a mountain bike trail and walking trail that's been put into there ahead of the council's work, but they were looking for a planting plan. So why now? Well, the old best time to plant a tree was always 25 years ago, or the part, and even some of the bushes there take a long time. We want it to go wild in the sort of sense it's not manicured, it's not city, it's a buffer zone between the city and the reserve. We want to be proud of it. Heathcote has been neglected. It's always been the sort of the open sewer of Woolston's industrial area in the past, so why did it need to stay that way? There's a lot of other things happening on the Port Hills and the Valley about the predator-free program, and it dovetails with issues like the Charlesworth salt marsh area. So what are we seeking? The short part of it is that we adopt and implement the plan, and same with the South Bank, we're doing a planting plan. None of these things, in our opinion, according to myself and the lizards and people that volunteer, should be big items, in the sense that if we go back to the 3,500 of hard costs, if it was 4 times as big and the council was actually matching that part, then we believe that we'd be heading in the right direction. So I'm open to any questions. Thank you very much.
We don't have time for questions in this format. Okay. But I'm just wondering whether we could refer the presentation. I don't know, Pauline, is it your committee that we refer it to, and ask you to consider it in terms of the development of the annual plan. So that, you know, in a way leading into our annual plan process, which we begin at the beginning of next year. So, well, we've been working on now, but we will we'll be signing that off for public consultation, I think, end of February, beginning of March, I think it is, normally goes out for consultation. So if we could refer it to the ITI committee, I don't know that we need a resolution to actually do that, or we could refer it to the community board, it doesn't matter which one.
The committee would be good because there could be opportunities in like the land drainage program as well. We need to know, and then we can track it so we don't lose it.
Yeah, but I don't want to take up a lot of time because this is. Can I just
suggest that they also go to the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee? They may be eligible for some biodiversity funding.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. So Pauline's our representative on that committee. So if you just want to connect up with Pauline, she'll put you in touch with the right people there. What's your?
There has actually been a lot of stuff happen previously. It's just the whole community partnership stuff where we've got extra staff, resources, but things like the broken glass, I think that's more an operational issue for the organisation. So I think there's some immediate stuff that could be picked up.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger issue was to sort of trigger off that discussion. I mean, this probably wasn't the best way to. There's two issues. The ferry made. No, I'm just saying this isn't the best way to do this because it requires more than 5 minutes, which is all you get under the public participation. But what you have done is you've brought it to all of our attention, and I think that the chief executive will take away the operational matters, and I think that there'll be somebody within the council organisation that can talk to the group about things like the glass, and that's been nodded off. Mm-hmm. So we'll get a report back on that in the new year. And if you talk to Pauline, connect up around that. But I'll just simply ask that this presentation be referred to ITI and they come back with some recommendations about funding for the annual plan. It's brilliant. Thank you very much.
The lizard appreciates your support.
I love the lizard. That's fantastic. And the next public presentation is Phil Campbell and Monica Cock. In relation, I think, to Marshall Street, is it? Yeah.
Hi. Hello, yeah. So we are here to... Do I need this thing? to represent we're residents of Marshall Street between Radley and Cumnor Terrace. We live opposite what used to be the Scalar factory and is now turned into a metal recyclers, which isn't, it's not cool for us. But the problem is with the zoning. We think there's a problem with zoning. We think there's a problem with what can be done within the district plan under what is regarded as being the light industry, that there's such a broad spectrum that it can go from a factory that works within walls, manufacturing, and yet now the land can be repurposed with no consent and no consultation to what is a metal recyclers. And the dynamic that has on the street is that they're sitting there with heavy machinery, crushing cars, the sound, the vibrations, visually, everything about it is completely different. You couldn't put those two things in the same category, and yet they are. And within the district plan, we seem to have absolutely no ability to enact change or defend ourselves in any way and say, well, this is not cool, this is not what it was. We know it was light industrial beforehand, but if the scope is so broad, then you could never know what was going to come. And it is a negative effect on us, property prices definitely, but even just our day-to-day living. It changes everything. If you're sitting in your front lounge trying to enjoy yourself in your home, and all you can hear is the sound of crushing cars, heavy machinery, vibrations from things being dropped, then that's a negative effect. And we don't have to sit there and have that, I don't believe. And we need the council to have a say. You need to get control of the district plan. I understand that you don't have control, so that needs to be gained. And then we need to talk about, should light industry be across the road from residential? And what is light industry? And I think within the district plan currently, there is discretionary powers for the council to make at least some sort of effort to create, or not to create actually, to put something up that makes it less impactful on us. So I think the council could go and say, well, you need to mitigate the impact you're having on these residents with sound barriers or some sort of visual barriers, trees. There's lots of things that can be done, I think, within the plan. And I've been talking to Yanni for a while and Ruth Dyson for even longer. And it just takes so long to get an answer. And a solution comes a long time after you get an answer. And this has been now, they've been there for a year. We have not a problem specifically with that as a thing. Of course, we need to be recycling these things, that's fine. But is it appropriate to have it across the road from residential houses? And is it appropriate for it to be able to just happen with no one saying anything to anybody? And, we're talking about the Heathkit. What's happening with the crushing cars? There's been no mitigation of where the trash is going. I'm picking up stuff out of my front yard that's pieces of car. What's coming out of cars? What's going into the drainage? What's going into the Heathkit? We've got piecemeal ideas of what we're doing in Woolston. You've got doing stuff down Ferry Road. We're fixing up the Heathkit. But there doesn't seem to be an overall plan for Woolston. So I said, what are we doing with Woolston? It's big. It's one of the largest suburbs. 98% of the households own their house. It's not, we're working class people, we're just banging away. And that can be the worst place to be because you have very few people that are on your side, You are a little bit cast out alone. If it was a street full of rentals, well, man, I tell you what, stuff would be going on because it'd be big landowners and they get all their associations together. So all we want to do is be recognised, and we want recognition that this is not something that should be happening in Christchurch. You can't just change a dynamic of a street negatively overnight, and that the residents do have a say, and that the council can do something for them. So basically that's all we have to say.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that we'll be getting back our power to amend our district plan soon in the new year. We suspect by March. So, but that begins a process for notification of plan changes. So the next item on our agenda is such a plan change, which we're preparing for implementing or notifying once we get that power back. It was taken from us by the government, who made a decision to extend the period within which we couldn't touch our plan after the independent hearings panel had written the new plan. So, so that's coming back. The other issue that you raised, though, is actually around the problems that we have with the RMA. And I think that a number of issues that have received a lot of publicity lately, including water, the issue comes back to the RMA and how it operates and what it does and doesn't protect, and the environment within which people live and their amenity can be secondary to some of the other considerations. And I think you raise a very good point. I probably would have preferred that that this go to your committee, Jamie, the regulatory performance, because that committee looks at the district plan. So I'm just going to ask that a note be made of this particular issue and refer it through for consideration. I don't want you to feel like you've come here and not be heard. You have been heard. It is a bigger issue, but we'll do what we can under the constraints that we're operating under.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And,
okay.
Yeah, talk to the man.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.